Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. This morning I'm looking at a book which has come to us from Waterside Press, Putting Justice into Words. It's another very important book on criminology, and one I'm sure that many people will find in the theoretical and more the applied, probably, criminological world to be of great value today. The title of the book is Preventing Self-Injury and Suicide in Women's Prisons. Not an easy topic. This book is something that I think is needed to highlight the serious problems that we do have at the moment. I'm recording this at the beginning of 2016 as we see policies unfolding at the moment. The book has been written by Tammy Walker and Graham Towell. It's in a paperback, but have a look at the book in a minute. So it says, come to us from Waterside Press. Elizabeth and I have given the title of our book review, Women and Girls in Prison, a new and authoritative study by leading experts in this field. And as I've said, I think it's an important subject. There's a foreword by Lord Harris, Toby Harris, well-known Labour politician. And then there is a nice spine there. And then there's some quotes on the back of the book. It's a thin book. It's not a big book at all. It runs to 160 odd pages. There is, in fact, a short index. Very much the house style of Waterside Press. They don't go into a very substantial amount of information, but there's a lot of bibliographical detail as well. So this has been a very well structured and thought out book. The bibliography does actually run to quite a long series of pages. And then if we go to the front of the book, we can show you the first page, which is there. There's some detail about the book itself there, and you can see from that information it's available as an e-book and as a PDF as well as a paperback. And then after that you've got a dedication, which I think is an important one. I will read it. We dedicate this book to all the women and girls who've been imprisoned. We believe that you deserve to be treated with respect and enabled to achieve all that life has to offer. And I think that's an important point to make, and there are some quotes about the book there. And then we've got the table of contents. Now I'm not going to spoil the book because I think you should read it. Some of the comments and the remarks made are not easy, which you can see but this is not an easy subject. You can see the 7 chapters laid out, and then there's a foreword by Harris, which goes through quite a lot of detail. Then detail about the authors themselves, some acknowledgements, and then you've got the actual chapters. You see the structure of the book running through. There aren't any footnotes or anything like that, but they do have chapter summary points, which I think is helpful. Again, this is very much part of the series of books that Waterside publish, which I think are valuable for criminologists. So what do we say about the book? Well, we say it doesn't take too much imagination to appreciate that finding oneself flung into prison might inevitably reduce one's will to live quite considerably, whether one is a male or a female. This book, which is new from Waterside Press, reveals that generally the rates of suicide and self-injury in prisons, that's in England and Wales, have caused considerable concern. It's pointed out, however, that the bulk of research into this disturbing phenomenon has been focused more on male prisoners, that's men and boys, rather than women and adolescent girls. There's a reason, of course, partly, and that is because of the sheer numbers. Now, gender bias may be a factor here, of course, but not necessarily. Women and girls, say the authors, have historically made up around 5% of the prisoner population. That's the MOJ figures in 2015. This sheds some light on why, out of the 2014 self-inflicted deaths, that's SIDS as they're called, in prison, recorded as occurring between 1978 and 2014, 103 of these occurred amongst women and girls. But taking percentages into account, the suicide rate for female prisoners is only slightly lower than that of males. Also, and worryingly, female prisoners manifest much higher rates of self-harm, and that's certainly something that's been commented on in the media now for some time, and something again that hasn't really been addressed to date. I think what this book is trying to do is to address one or two of the issues which hitherto have not been very high on the political agenda. The two authors, that's Tammy Walker and Graham Towell, contribute an impressive amount of experience and expertise to this carefully researched study. Walker is the principal lecturer in psychology at Manchester University and a member of the advisory group for the Suicide Prevention in Prisons initiative being developed by a number of institutes, including the Howard League for Penal Reform. And Graham Towell, I think he's known probably to quite a few people, is a leading expert on suicide in prison, and he's Professor of Forensic Psychology and Pro-Vice Chancellor and Deputy Warden of Durham University. So we have two experts here who've come together to produce what I think is a very authoritative statement, and I hope it will raise the profile of the subject matter they are talking about, the object of this particular exercise. Theirs, of course, is a wide-ranging examination of cause and effect, attitudinal problems and current policy connected with self-injury and suicide amongst prisoners. And writing in the foreword, Lord Harris, Toby, observes that the reason why so few prisoners are successfully rehabilitated is the lack of individual care. Women in particular are burdened with a number of additional problems in prison, he says, including separation from children, very important of course, higher rates of trauma, victimisation, mental health problems and substance abuse. Each self-inflicted death, he contends, is a failure by the state to protect the prisoners concerned. I think that is a statement which, whilst highly justified here, extends much further, because in a civilised society we treat people properly, notwithstanding the appalling things that some of them have done. And therefore, as prevention of such trauma and tragedy is clearly emphasised in the book, some urgent political issues emerge, and really that's why I've reviewed this work, because I think it's time that it rose up the agenda a little bit. It could be argued that serious works of research like this one are indispensable in informing and supporting political decision making, for example in the matter of decriminalising certain crimes, which are well known to us as lawyers of course, that impact mainly against women who have been deserted by their partners, typically and notably non-payment of fines for TV licences and matters possibly relating to council taxation. And having been involved in these cases, I have a particularly strong concern. And I also think, and I know it would be right for me to say, that I think quite a lot of magistrates and judges have equal concerns. But there again, we are part of a system. And one of the difficulties at the moment is that when you write a paper like this, a book like this, and you are talking about issues which are very relevant to those studying criminology, the bottom line always gets back to politics. And that's really why I think a bit of publicity for this book would not go amiss, hence the review. Let me conclude by quoting the Howard League, which is always worth doing. They refer to issues raised in this book collectively as a neglected subject, which is what it is, of course, and it makes its publication there, in our view, all the more important and timely. Anyone professionally involved then in this area of concern should purchase a copy, and I hope the relevant ministers in government have actually seen it, been sent a copy, and perhaps read it in one of their boxes. The publication date is cited at September 2015. Let's have a quick look at the book again. There's the front, the spine, and then the back. There are some quotes, various quotes that are put there, and I've obviously paraphrased a bit of what we've said. Let me just open this up. This is just opening the book. Staff training for self-injury and suicide. Again, an important area in its own right, because the prison service, they get a lot of criticism. It's a terrible job, no question about it. And of course staff training is very important. I did like the chapter summaries and the further reading, which again makes this book stand out. I'm not suggesting against other Waterside Press books, but it certainly makes it stand out with other books in a similar sort of area in terms of criminology. What I've liked about Waterside Press is that these books are very readable. It's not something that's difficult to read. You can skip through some of the much more detailed elements and get to the thrust of the the actual content very quickly. Thank you anyway to Toby Harris for doing the foreword, and of course to Tammy and Graham for producing what is a very valuable book. Let's hope something is done about it, and we can but hope. Thank you also to Brian Gibson and the staff at Waterside for again publishing courageously, I think, these books. I think they help the debate generally, and thank you to all. Bye bye.